included in the memo.
Yes,
Do you accept that, motion maker?
yes.
So the motion will be to make a favorable recommendation to the zoning board, subject to all of the conditions in the memo. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 4A, public hearing, application of Jack Gullison for development plan review, including request for waivers from certain design standards of the Middletown rules and regulations regarding the subdivision in Section 521 for construction of a new commercial building to include a 17-room hotel with a restaurant and associated site work located on property identified as 59 Aquidneck Avenue, Assessor's Plat 115 SE, Lot 169.
I'll make a
May I have-
motion to open the public hearing.
May I have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Motion is made and seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing is open. Mr. Lynch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Jay Lynch on behalf of the owner and applicant. What's before you this evening is a proposal to construct a 17-room hotel on the site with an accessory restaurant located on the premises. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing structure on the site and rebuild a new structure in its place. I'll have Ms. Small go over the engineering and location of the new structure when she testifies. Just generally speaking, what we're going to do is that this is going to be a structure where we're raised the first floor. It's going to be parking underneath the existing structure. There'll be a restaurant, kitchen, and a meeting function room on the second floor of the structure. And then the hotel rooms will be located on the third and fourth floor of the structure. There are several waivers that we're seeking for design review. I'll address those after Ms. Small goes over her presentation for you on the engineering. With that being said, I'll just let Ms. Small start off with the engineering and the layouts, and then we'll follow up and going over the structure.
Jay, we seem to be having trouble hearing you.
I'm not sure his mic is working.
I'll try to get as close as I possibly can to it.
Can you pick it up? Is it possible?
I guess we can try to put that up here. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'll lean forward into the microphone, and I'll make sure Lynn leans forward into the microphone as well. All right?
Thank you.
Lynn, you want to come up?
I might have to put this back down on the lower level. The vertically challenged. Lynn Small, Northeast Engineers, 6 Valley Road. The project is located at the former KJ site on Aquidneck Avenue. We're proposing to demo it completely and rebuild a new structure. Under existing conditions, we have frontage on both Aquidneck Avenue and Briarwood Avenue. And I'm sure you've all been there. There's a lower parking level that basically has the entire length of the frontage as its curb cut. And then there's an upper parking lot that doesn't really have the right aisle width that comes off of Briarwood Avenue. The restaurant that exists today kind of is on the lower level with emergency access that extends onto the upper level. The proposal is to demo the building. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have a 100-year floodplain that goes across the front of the structure, but the new building will be entirely inside the X zone, so we won't be in a floodplain for this structure. The proposal includes the demo and rebuild of a restaurant with an upper level hotel. We will have the building will lift it off the ground so that we can provide some parking underneath. Unlike the existing structure where we have the separated parking areas where you have to go on a side street to get to the additional parking, the new parking lot will be entirely accessible from Aquidneck Avenue. And we made sure that the aisle widths that we have meet the town code for 24 feet wide. We also provide sidewalk and striped painting out to Aquidneck Avenue. The drainage system for the site, because this is a redevelopment site, represents water quality treatment, because we'll be increasing the pervious area across the site, which automatically results in a reduction in your peak runoff. So the only requirement that we have to meet state and local code for your drainage system is to provide pre-treatment and water quality treatment for your impervious areas. Due to the elevated drainage structures and DOT roadway, the best way for us to treat the water quality is to provide an underground system that ends up at the rear portion of the building, inside the landscaped area, which will be subsurface and discharged through the wall for anything that doesn't infiltrate. By providing this drainage system in the upper level of the project site behind the retaining wall, we're able to provide some groundwater recharge where we have nothing right now. As you all know, the site is 100% impervious with asphalt or building, and there's no provisions for stormwater right now. We also include landscape features on the, east side of the site and the south side of the site, and along Aquidneck Avenue. Due to the configuration of the lot line and the road right-of-way, we will have what will feel like a wider landscape area than the required 10 feet. The project meets the 10 feet, but if you look at the site plans, the lot line ends about 20 feet from where the roadway is. That sliver of land is technically owned by the town, and it's a result of when they reconfigured Briarwood Avenue in its intersection with Aquidneck Ave. So when you look at the landscape plan that we submitted, you'll see that we did ask for a waiver from the department so that we could put those street trees so they lined up with the sidewalk versus the lot line. It'll just give you a better street view for this project than if the street trees were held onto the property. We're not asking for any relief from the required front 10-foot buffering landscape feature. We're just asking to put those street trees along the roadway edge versus on the lot line. That was something that during the TRC, it was supported as just a better aesthetic option for the project. Utilities for the site will include a water connection, which we have already, a new sewer connection, electric and gas. Those will be subject to individual reviews by those utility agencies before we do the construction. This project is too small to require a RIPD's permit, but we did have to go to DOT because we have a state road. Aquidneck Avenue is a state road, so we do have that state permit in hand. They did a thorough review of the drainage system because the entire site drains towards their state highway. That's basically an overview of the project. I don't know if you have any specific questions regarding the layout.
Questions for Ms. Small?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Lynn. You mentioned that the sliver of land in the front is owned by the town of Middletown?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. But it is a state road.
It is. It's a very, very strange situation.
It's a triangular piece.
I see it, yeah.
Between the state right-of-way and the property line, which is a remnant of, as Lynn said, town-owned property.
But based on the site plan, and I know the TRC looked at it, looks like you are planning around it and working with what the limitations are based on lot lines.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Other questions? Michael?
I see on the plans there that one of the heights that shown from the bottom to not even the top of the building is just about 60 feet. Now, I understand that, most of the projects that we look at, are restricted to, say, 35 feet, total height. How do you justify that 60-foot, level?
So according to state law, the average existing grade across the footprint of a structure is used to establish your building height. This project, because of the tiered driveway, the parking elevations, creates a pretty significant difference between the front of the lot elevation and the back of the lot elevation. We're not asking for a height variance on this project. It is completely compliant with the state code and the state requirement on building height and how that calculation is done.
If I could just step in here, maybe something's changed since the last time I spoke to the building and zoning official, but I was informed by Mr. Costa that this would indeed need a height variance. The building exceeds the 40-foot height limit.
So,
You wish to respond?
I can address that, What Mr. Costa has been dealing with, and this hasn't been the past practice of the building official, it's dealing with the screening surrounding the mechanicals. Mr. Costa has taken the position that the screening surrounding the materials is the building height. The structure itself is limited at 45 feet. So the main structure is capped out at 45 feet, doesn't require any relief. I know I've had discussions with Mr. Regan concerning Mr. Costa's opinion on that. That's not the way it's been interpreted in the past. So I think we're going to have to resolve that issue prior to getting to the zoning board. But the building itself, the height limit of the structure is 45 feet.
It would be 40 feet if you're going to meet the zoning requirement.
I'm sorry, 40 feet. I'm sorry.
Other questions?
so, just a,
I want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
According to the diagram, it shows the dimension to the top of the roof of 59 feet, 1.5 inches, and the first floor plan is at 15 feet. The difference is 45.
Well, we were under the prior ordinance, which I think at that point it was 45 feet when we filed this application.
It was 40 feet, it was reduced to 35.
No, you know what?
you're showing 40.
You're not, yeah, it's 40, because what you've got to factor in is the average grade on the plan.
What,
Oh, yeah, it goes to 19. So
what plan, can we,
If
It's
you want
40,
to look
yeah.
at the architect's
showing
renderings,
40.
showing 40.
Yeah,
on A201,
I see that. I see
yeah,
that.
so that's where we're going from. I apologize.
Is that the right one?
Yeah, that's the plan. So what you've got to do is they're starting from the average grade and then going up to the 40 feet.
So just to be clear, Jay, two sets of plans, one's this, that show, apologize, but the height, well, I was looking at what I thought was 40, and I concur. What exactly are the differences between these schematics?
I'm going to go over those with you. Those really were triggered by Mr. Costa's comments. So we've prepared two renderings for the board to decide and give you a preference on what you'd like to see. So I'll walk through the, A plans and the B plans, which are the alternate plans that were prepared as a result of Mr. Costa's comments.
So, I think we should do that.
Sure.
But I still believe, obviously, the building official has the prerogative to say that it doesn't meet the height, and you have to deal with it, one way or another, whether it's with us or with the zoning board, or not, based on that. But we need to go through. But that kind of, frankly, influences my support or non-support for something like this. But that's the challenge you have.
Right. And all
Right
I
now.
can tell you, Mr. Nash, is that when these plans were submitted, Mr. Kane was the acting building official. He reviewed those plans, what we have in front of you now, and determined that we
Okay.
did not need any variances for the height.
I see now, I get it now, thank you.
So are you going to go through the two?
I am. If you, are you all set with Ms. Small?
Any other questions for the engineer?
Okay. Let me walk you through the design of the building, and let's look at the first set of plans, which are marked A200. That was the initial submission that we've had from the very beginning with this project. I'll just walk you through generally through the building, first floor, second floor, third floor, and fourth floor, and go through. As you can see from the elevations, let's deal with A202. That shows the front elevation of the building. That's facing Aquidneck Avenue. You're going to have parking beneath the building. There is going to be a main entrance to the building from the parking lot on the south side of the structure, as you can see there. There's going to be interior stairways from the below deck parking. There's going to be an elevator at the ground level in the parking to get to the second floor, third floor, and fourth floor of the building. But the primary entrance from the exterior is going to be off the front side of the building on the south side. If you want to look at A200, that's going to be the interior of the site. Starting from left, going to the right, that's the second floor plan, which shows the restaurant area, the kitchen for the proposed restaurant, and then a vent catering space to the rear of the second floor. The third floor plan contains several rooms, and then same for the fourth floor, additional rooms on the fourth floor. So we're going to have a total of 17 rooms in the structure.
So that's the second, third, and fourth, is that missing?
You want to look at the first page of A200 and look at that rendering up in the upper right-hand corner. What the architect did, Mr. Herkimer, designed was a kind of a false roof to shield the mechanicals from the street. So the mechanicals are sitting on the flat roof, which is a 45-foot height on that. What he's done is he's prepared a false roof to shield those mechanicals from the street view. Mr. Costa had an issue with that false roof, which resulted in the second design, which is the B200 series.
What was his issue?
Same thing with he considers that part of the building height, even though there's no livable space, habitable space above that. We're treating that as an architectural screening for the mechanicals. It's not habitable, and I think that's been used in the past in other locations where you've got the false roof, so these mechanicals aren't visible from street level. Mr. Costa had a concern about that, so what we did is we presented a second set of plans, which were the B200 series. You want to look at the upper right-hand corner of that.
That's the gateway.
What the architect did is he just removed that false wall. What you see at the top is the edge of the roof line is a flat roof, 45 feet in height, and then he just placed lattice work and screening around the mechanicals so they're not visible from the street.
Ron, is there a definition of what constitutes the roof?
That's up to the building and zoning official.
There is an exception for building height, which excludes cupolas, flagpoles, chimneys, and I think it says "and the like." And my understanding in the past that "and the like" has always included screening around the mechanicals, air conditioning, heating that are placed upon the roof. So it's our position that the screening is, and the lichen is exempt from the building height. It doesn't look as nice as the false roof line, but, we'll leave that up to the board as to what you'd prefer, and what type of a recommendation you'd like to give.
Paul?
Go ahead, Bill.
Peter? Can you help us here with this?
Well, what I need to do is to meet with Mr. Costa, because I have not had a chance to speak with him on this, and I don't know the specifics of what his determination is. So rather than just speak in the abstract, I'd like to, since ultimately it is the building official's call, I would like to have an opportunity to meet with him first.
Right, no, I concur.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the definition of building height doesn't specifically reference screening for mechanicals. Just uses that term, and it's, I think, cupolas, spires, chimneys, and the like.
right, I'm familiar with that.
I do need to speak with him, and
Yeah,
I can
so
get back to the board.
I agree with that. I got to tell you, I think that's, for me, the crux of where we're at here right now. That's an important determination for me.
Art?
Well, I think there's additional zoning interpretation that needs to be made also, according to what I read here in the planner's memo about the buffer between the parking lot and the residential areas. I don't think that's been worked out, because I don't see anything going either way. It says that's being worked out between the applicant and the zoning officer. So we've got a little problem with height, and we've also got a buffer issue, among many other things here, between the parking lot and where people live. So, and that's important.
And that's one of the issues that, we're prepared to address. My understanding is that the property directly to the north is being rented out as a B&B, short-term rental. It's not being used as a single-family or two-family residential structure. So I think it's a commercial use. And then there's a question of whether or not that buffer would apply to the commercial use, because it is zoned limited business on the site to the north as well.
Other comments?
Yeah, maybe Peter could chime in on that as well.
Once again, that's something I can discuss with the building official. Typically, whether it's a long-term rental or short-term rental, it's a residential use, as opposed to a commercial use. It is a commercial zone, but the buffer requirements, as I understand them, apply to residential uses within the commercial zones. Once again, it's something we can clarify with the zoning officer and then report back to the board.
And again, that's one of the issues when the application was initially filed with the zoning board and with the building official at that point. It was determined that relief was not required from that provision of the ordinance. So I know Mr. Costa's come in and he may have a different opinion.
Regardless, I think plays a
Yeah.
pretty big factor in what we're trying to do here tonight.
BJ?
Yes, it appears that we need to continue this until we get some firm advice from Mr. Costa and also legal advice.
I have no objection to that.
I believe you have to request it.
I will request that this matter be continued so the board can get the appropriate advice from the building official and the solicitor concerning what, if any, zoning relief is necessary for the proposed structure.
Is 1 month adequate, Peter?
That'll be fine. I just would ask Mr. Lynch to just shoot me an email with a list of the specific issues in addition to the ones we've talked about tonight, if there's any others, so we can deal with them all at once.
There are no other zoning issues relative to that you're looking for relief. Lot coverage is
No.
good, parking is good.
Parking is fine. We're looking for a variance from the parking setback from the Briarwood side, but if that's not granted, that's not a problem.
That's a zoning
right.
issue that doesn't
But that's,
concern me.
we're not looking for lot coverage, we're not looking for any parking variances, we meet the requirements.
That works. I think that's best.
Other comments?
I do. I really don't think we should continue this. We should vote on it tonight. I personally have a lot of problems with this project. I really don't think it belongs in that location or in the district. It also requires, in addition to these questions about zoning relief, at least 7 waivers from the planning board. And I also think finding 2 in section 309 of the Middletown zoning ordinance might come into question in this particular case, which says, the granting of such approval will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of the property in the surrounding area or zoning district. And I do see an impact here in the adjacent areas, which are residential, and the zoning district itself. So my point would be that we vote on this thing tonight and not continue it.
Mr. Webb, but those are the
Chairman,
issues that will be addressed at the zoning board level that you...
Mr.
And
Chairman,
and we still got zoning questions outstanding also. So it appears to me to be a lot of problems with this particular application.
my suggestion would be that we get these questions answered, allow the applicant the full opportunity to present, allow the public to weigh in so that when you do vote on it, you're voting on it based on all of the information that's
Yeah.
available rather than the limited information that might be available tonight,
We have a
which
motion.
I think is fair to everyone.
Yeah. We have a motion to continue. Is that okay with you, given what Peter just said?
Well, I see the handwriting on the wall here,
We have-
sure.
we have
Yeah.
a motion
Yeah,
to
we'll
continue.
continue it. I think that's the right thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion?
And what date is this continued?
The next meeting, September
September
8th.
8th.
Yeah.
So also, I would remind us that we would want to keep the public meeting open,
Yeah,
correct?
right.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay, so the motion is to continue this item to the September 8th meeting and keeping the public hearing open.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jay.
The next item is item 4C, the public hearing. Application of Newport Car Vaults, care of Blake Henderson, for development plan review, including requests for waivers from certain design standards of the Middletown rules and regulations regarding the subdivision and development of land, Section 521, for construction of a new commercial building and site work for an auto storage building, property located at 55 John Clark Road, Plat 115, Lot 33.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Gerard Galvin for Easton Pond Realty LLC, the member...
Can't hear you.
Sorry, can you?
That's, but, yeah,
All
that's
right, I'll
much
get a
better.
little
Get
closer.
close to the microphone.
I'll speak up. Gerard Galvin on behalf of Easton Pond Realty LLC. Blake Henderson, the member of that LLC, is here tonight. We're here with Lynn Small, who's our civil engineer, and Spencer McComb, the architect on the project. As you introduce the project, we're talking about 55 John Clark Road in the office park. Currently, there's a 2-story, 10,300 square foot building, office building there. The building is dated. Many of you were there at the site visit. It's in tough shape. More than that, the use it's designed for is getting pretty close to obsolete. There's a very high vacancy rate, very low rental rates, and so Mr. Henderson is looking to take the use to a more productive use. There is, while the need for office space is down, there is a need locally for car storage, particularly high-end car storage. And the model that the applicant is presenting here is based on some businesses that are operating successfully out on the West Coast, and Mr. Henderson's looking to bring it here. The goal is to demolish this existing structure and build a 25,000, slightly more than that square foot building with 32 units where the owners of these units, which will be condoed, will be stored. Now, there's a reference in the plans that you have to an office unit. That may or may not be the case. It may simply be 32 automotive storage units. The property is in the office park district, and the self-storage use in that district requires a special use permit, so we'll be before the zoning board for a special use permit. We are also requiring a height variance, requesting a height variance at the zoning board for a similar reason as was discussed in the last petition. From actual grade, we will not be above the 40-foot height. However, from the average grade, we will be slightly above the height at the easternmost portion of the property. So we'll be seeking a height variance for that. Your board visited the site on July 6th. We have been through the technical review committee and received a positive recommendation there with some conditions. There was some discussion with the building official about whether we needed to go to Conservation Commission or not, and he has concluded, and Warren Hall has concluded, that we do not need to appear before the Conservation Commission. One other item I wanted to address before I turn it over to Lynn Small is the memo discusses at several points from the planner the possibility of a gate being at both the entrance and the exit of the property, and certain conditions that would have to go along with that, or some additional review that would have to go with that. And we can state here tonight that the gate will not be part of the application or the plan going forward, so we can hopefully remove those from your consideration and review. This is a redevelopment of an already fully developed property, trying to put a dated building and at a unnecessary use into a more productive one. We think that's very consistent with the comprehensive plan. There's nothing here that suggests any harm to the public health or safety, and so we look forward to hopefully securing your approval. With that, I'll introduce Lynn Small to walk you through the engineering details, and following her presentation and any questions you have, I'll have Spencer come up and walk you through the renderings.
Before you turn it over to Lynn, do I understand that you said it will no longer be gated?
That's correct. So there were a number of points raised in the planner's memo, whether it be waivers requested dealing with that, or the application of, I think, section 625 of the subdivision regulations, which deals with gated communities. I think we can remove that from the discussion. We won't be having a gate as part of the plan going forward.
Just a clarification.
Okay, Bill?
So you might have touched on it, Gerald, in the memo from Ron. I'll just refer to it, paragraph 2, which talks about the 10,300 square foot building, a new 25,200 square foot automotive storage facility with 32 condominium units. 1 unit to be used for office space, the remaining 21. I didn't do very good in math, but to me that doesn't, if you could just clarify.
I believe that's just a clerical error.
Typo.
I think it was
Typo?
Typo, meant to be,
So it should say 31.
that's correct.
Thank you, that's what I just wanted to clarify.
Right.
While you're finding my mistakes, I'll also make note that, as Gerard referenced, this project no longer is seeking a recommendation for Zone 1. As Mr. Costa has determined that the special use permit is not required, I did update the agenda to remove that reference. However, I did not update the memo to remove the reference to Zone 1. So just want to make the board aware that the applicant is no longer seeking a Zone 1 special use permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Ron.
Okay, I'll have Lynn come up and take you through the engineering.
Good evening, Lynn Small, Northeast Engineers, 6 Valley Road. The project site is currently developed with a office building and 3-tiered parking lot on the John Clock Road side of the project, and then on the Valley Road side of the project, there's another parking area. So there's a large portion of impervious area on this site. When we did the design of the project, we focused on trying to minimize the impervious areas on the property. With this type of usage, we're expecting that we don't need a lot of parking on the property. We're expecting people drive a vehicle to go and work on their vehicle or do something for their vehicle that's in the storage unit. So we provided those parking spaces along the perimeter of the site, but we made them pervious. They're pervious pavers. So they're part of your drainage system, essentially. We will maintain 2 curb cuts on the site, which exist today, but they will be shifted to better allow for those parking spaces on the perimeter. So you'll come in, both curb cuts will be wide enough to provide for 2-way traffic and provide adequate fire access to the site. The site, if you're familiar with it, slopes pretty significantly from John Clock Road down to Valley Road. So this is why technically when you take the average existing grade across the footprint, you end up with a height variance. But when Spencer gets up and you can see the actual structure, the profile from base to height is not that tall. So individually, it doesn't exceed the height requirements or limitations that this town has in place. The building itself is stepped as you go down. So you'll have a garage bay, and then the next one may be a little bit lower and lower and lower as you go down the hill, so that we can try to keep that building from being too high and then requiring retaining walls. On the western side of the site, we'll have the drainage feature. It includes your pre-treatment and your water quality treatment. The site itself, after we're done with the project, because we went ahead and made those parking spaces pervious, results in a reduction in your peak runoff because we've increased the pervious area of the property. Utilities for the site include water and sewer, although we expect that the usage itself will be less than what the existing usage on the utility systems are today for the system. We'll also have electric and potentially gas. We do have a landscaping plan that was prepared by Charles Earl. That's included in your package. That includes some perimeter trees and landscape features on the site. There wasn't any specific existing vegetation that was preservable. And the landscape architect had basically said there wasn't really anything that was worth preserving either. What we're proposing is an upgrade to what is there from a landscape perspective. The stormwater, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the stormwater for 1 second. We are discharging to the swale that runs along the Valley Road. So that is a state highway again. And we did go to the DOT and received that physical alteration permit for that discharge. We also went to DEM and received an approval for a RIPD's permit because we will be disturbing over an acre when this project is completed. That's basically the overall of the civil. I don't know if you had any questions.
Michael?
Is there any car maintenance planned for this facility, or is it just storage? Yeah.
You know, I don't think you'll be able to do oil changes or anything, but it's not intended to be a, you know, a full-blown mechanical maintenance operation.
I can introduce Mr. Henderson to answer that question.
Sure. I'm just wondering if there's any impacts from any material or any, fluids or something like that coming
No,
off
there
cars
are-
that might contaminate water.
We are expecting that some of the owners will.
Could you
continue with their
identify
car-
yourself, please?
Pardon?
Identify
Oh,
yourself, please.
hi, my name is Blake Henderson, and I'm the owner of the project.
Okay.
And to answer your questions, there are no floor drains in the project. We are not allowing any commercial car work to go on there. However, people that own beautiful cars like to tinker with them and upgrade the carburetors and do whatever else they do.
Yeah.
So it's envisioned presently that there would be no prohibition on opening the hood of your car and changing the carburetor, but there would be a restriction on any commercial repair activities or motor works.
Okay, thanks.
Paul?
John?
Mr. Henderson, basically, there's going to be no transference of fluids such as antifreeze, oil, and
We will have restrictions in the condo documents that any fluids that are discharged from an automobile, some of them are quite old, will be caught by absorbent materials. They'll be dealt with properly. We do have a dumpster plan for on-site, but we are not going to allow exterior storage of any materials or tools or activities. This project is modeled after several of them that have occurred in Monterey, California. And the majority of the vehicles in these types of facilities are museum or art quality vehicles that are maintained for investment, showing off. And so this will not be a commercially busy place. It'll be a place where someone goes and admires their collection and can show it to their friends. From looking at the Monterey, California projects, they are quiet, very low traffic. Actually, it's a good use of the property.
It's kind of refreshing to hear the term carburetor.
Bill?
Yeah, thanks. Blake, and I know probably Spencer will get into it on the architectural, but it kind of goes to the need for a height variance. It's a two-story building,
Yes.
which, as I see in the renderings and the detail, it's as we talk about vehicle storage, and that's what it's for, as you've testified. And I know the zoning will get into this, but it does have lifts. Is there a lift in each unit? So it's a car on top of a car? Is that
Yes,
what I'm...
these are electric lifts that you can drive a car onto, lift up your collectible, and put another one right underneath. And in the purchase of the smaller units out in California, that was a very popular way to put 10 pounds of cars in a 5-pound unit.
So all of the units will be fitted with a lift?
No, some won't need it because they'll only have 2 or 3 cars or even one. But it is an option that an owner can put into it because these things show up in pallets. You put them on the floor and you plug them in and you're in business. There's no hydrology, no oil pit, nothing of the type of lifts that we grew up looking at. It's a very simple tool.
Other comments?
thank you, Mr.
Joe?
Henderson.
I have some comments for Lynn, please. So Lynn, just in the big picture of things, the existing drainage versus the proposed, can you just give me a bit of an overview? What's there today versus, it looks like an upgrade?
It is an upgrade, especially from an environmental standpoint. The existing site has some catch basins around, but they basically just directly drain out to Valley Road. I just want to double check and make sure they actually drain out to Valley Road. There's no provisions for water quality in those drainage systems under the current design. Yeah, we show those drain lines that you can see on the existing conditions plan, sheet 3 of 8.
Right.
And those catch basins basically all connect north side of the site and then drain down on the south side of the site and eventually into the DOT swale system. Under the proposed conditions, we're basically sheet flowing the system into a swale along the perimeter of the property, so there's some green there when you get some uptake in your root system. Then it goes into a pre-treatment a depression basically that provides some capacity for any sediments that may have come down the hill, and then it goes into a sand filter which has an under drain, so it goes through the sand, cleans the storm water, discharges through an under drain, and then goes right back into that swale that it goes to today.
Okay, so I count in the new plan, on page C4, am I accurate, 43 permeable pavers in total? 20 on the, looks like the north side, and 23 on the south side? Is that accurate? 43?
Yeah, those are parking spaces.
Parking.
permeable pavement. Yep.
Is there any concern about, you know, not the museum quality cars, but just the average guy who's going to see his cars, about any leakage or anything that could happen in those 43 spaces?
I mean, this cross-section that we've used is the one that the state has approved for use. It's the one
Okay.
that you see out on Broadway, those parking spaces that are on Broadway. It's also the one that we use at the Tennis Hall of Fame. So can there be a leakage? Yes, but there is the filter stone that's in there.
All right.
And the maintenance would be to vacuum them. So it has been vetted by the state and their vetting system for the use of these pretreatment and water quality features.
Other comments? I have a few questions.
Paul, I'm sorry, just
Go ahead.
if maybe Gerard, if you could maybe list through there's quite a few waivers here, maybe address those with the board. I know some of us might have questions on that, but there's a lot of, 9 separate waivers. Maybe you could just touch on them, and we can confirm what exactly you're looking for.
Well, we can walk through, and I may be calling Lynn up to speak to some of these, and potentially Spencer on some of the materials. But in terms of, for instance, on the pedestrian walkways and crosswalks.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Up there right now, there's, I don't believe, any walkways or crosswalks, and we're talking about the office park where we're not talking about any residential or I think, intended meaningful pedestrian transportation. The people who will be using this site will be driving here from wherever they are and, parking in the parking lot and I don't think walking to any other place within the office park. So we think that's a somewhat impractical requirement here, and we'd be asking for a waiver from that requirement. I believe and maybe I can have Lynn speak to this, but I believe there's a indication of where the trash receptacle is on the plan, and I'm trying to see where that is at the moment. I know there's one currently on the site, and certainly it's intended to be there. There'll be a trash receptacle provided, and we'll, work with whatever the board requires or the planner requires for the location of that on the site.
So you're saying you're not requesting a waiver for that item?
Well, I think, can you show us where we have it?
Sure thing. We show, they're placeholder boxes on the plan, and
Is it on this sheet?
it is on sheet
C-
4.
C4.
C4.
Yeah.
Next to the parking spaces. So if you're coming in on the northern curb cut and you have the parking spaces to your right, at the downhill corner of that first cluster of parking spaces, you see a square. That's our placeholder for a trash receptacle. There's no office for this building, so we felt that the best place to put them was next to where people were parking. We're open to your recommendation. Those can be shifted where they're needed, and I imagine Blake's not going to want trash all over his site. He'll shift them if they need to be in a different spot. We also have a dumpster located for the project site.
Where's the
so
dumpster?
The dumpster is on the southern side, and it's on the downhill edge of the first cluster of parking.
So can you back up, though? You mentioned there's no office.
There's no office because there's no office needed for this type of use.
But it's shown on the plan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so let's just, if we clarify that would be helpful as well.
Well, Unit 1, when the plans were developed, I think there was some question about whether there was going to be any type of staff that would need an office. I believe the direction, and so it was reflected as Unit 1/office. I believe the direction that this is going is it will be condoed, it will be regulated in that way. Each unit owner will be his own, have his own ownership status. There won't be a separate office there managing things. Will that be in Unit 1? You can come up and explain that then.
I know what you said. I heard what he said, but you can say it again.
Yeah, that one unit was going to be the showroom as the project developed. And then, of course, once the project is sold out or leased out, then it would become a car storage unit.
So if somebody has a problem, how do they get help? If, say there's some problem, the door doesn't go down, or is there a,
There'll be a property management company on call.
okay. So there is somebody that can come out and take care of whatever it is?
Yeah, this type of facility does require a number of services.
Yeah.
But it's like having their cars moved to another location down south during the season. Any number of things.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense. So I still don't see the dumpster, and maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot. I see the trash receptacle.
Lynn, if you could just confirm, for Mr. Nash, I think this is where you're talking.
That's the dumpster that's located for the project. We don't feel that there's going to be a huge use for a dumpster on this project, but we do have a placeholder for a 6-yard dumpster. This type of dumpster is on wheels, so it can be rolled out when the trash comes to pick it up. So they'll be able to pull around, make the loop, roll it out, lift it up, empty it, and then roll it back.
Okay, so we're talking about waivers 3 and 4, which relative to trash receptacles and designs and whatnot, and I'd just like to know if you still want those waivers or not.
We don't believe we need them.
Could you work with, Ron, can you work with them to come up with an acceptable design and placement and maybe eliminate those waiver requests?
Yeah.
If the board's comfortable with that, absolutely.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
So I think we're at 5.
Yeah,
If you can-
similar to the pedestrian crosswalks requirement, I think there's an ordinance that it's a pretty onerous standard for the number of bike racks per parking spaces. I think this would require, might be 1 to 5, right, so 20 plus bicycle spaces, and I think the idea is partially here that you're going to have owners who are buying a storage garage unit. If they were to ride their bike to this facility, they have a storage facility in which they could store their bike. If the planning board and the planner feel that substantial bike rackage is important here, that's another area where we're willing to work with you, but based on the storage on site, we would like to request the waiver and not be required to have those.
I think the bike rack thing needs to be a case-by-case basis. Not every parking lot needs a bike rack, so,
Agreed.
yeah. And I think this is one of them where a bike rack probably doesn't work.
Well, that's why we're requesting the waiver here.
Have you seen some of the bikes today? People riding around on the motorized bikes? That's crazy.
Somebody might buy a unit to store their motorized bikes in.
Right, sure, hopefully. Okay, so I'm fine with that. Can you keep going on the,
I will have Spencer, when he comes up, speak
Sure.
to the trim. And as to screening elements along Valley Road, the landscaper, I don't know if the landscape designer spoke to you specifically about that, Lynn, but my sense of it is that, right now on that property, you're dealing with, almost a borderline wetland area that has natural vegetation there, and that's the sort of intended feature that will remain there. There's substantial landscaping going around, improvements going around the rest of the property,
Sure.
but that's why we're seeking the waiver there. And Lynn, can you just speak to the landscape buffer, number 8 here, in terms of the waiver? I'll jump to 9. I believe, and Lynn can come back to 8, but on 9, I believe the landscape plan does reflect two trees ago.
This is Valley Road. Valley Road.
Sorry, Valley Road. So that goes back to my prior comments there.
Yep, that's what I thought.
And then on number, I'll help Lynn out here. On number 8, the requirement is that they have a landscaped strip between the parking and driveways and the building. More applicable to a retail situation, the use of this building, I don't want to
Agreed.
suggest what the board should do, but I think
Agreed.
there's a good argument for why that type of landscaping strip in between the building and the parking might not make sense in this case.
I'm good with those. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are you bringing, I had a question about synthetic boral. What is synthetic boral?
Well, I think I'd like Spencer to come up
Sure.
and he can show you the designs, which
Have him come
I
up.
think look great, and he can talk about that.
Spencer McComb, Courts and Design.
Where do they go?
I think you guys have these packets, so if you see something out there you don't have, I have copies for everyone just in case didn't get around. I can address the Boral comment in a minute, but I'd just like to run you through how we're trying
Sure.
to comply with the planning board design standards by creating a row of different intersecting planes and facades that undulate in and out to clad this building in such a way that it does feel at home here on Aquinic Island. Shingle gables that have stepped architectural features in and out, residential style windows with mullion patterns in them. Even the garage doors are carriage door style garage doors, which will have built up PVC dimension to them, so they'll feel not like a pressed vinyl door, but something that's a lot more realistic. Even the entry door is residential in scale and style. We have clapboard that runs along the majority of the base of the building. And then actually the base itself is a stone-clad water table that runs along. Obviously, this is a very unique piece of property, dropping 21 feet over the course of the length of the 400 feet of the building. The idea here was to try to break that up, both undulating the planes in and out and also stepping them down gradually as they step down. Every car door is essentially 1 foot below the next, so there's these undulating vertical planes that drop you down to each garage door. We tried really hard to follow the design standards in cladding this building and dealing with it. There are some flat areas that you can see from this rendering, but from the street or from anywhere besides maybe a helicopter, you won't even realize that those are there. The gable roofs and the shed dormers on the sides clad all that. And it does provide a spot where if we have any condensers that are needed, those can sit submerged into that flat area. Again, not visible from any car or pedestrian traffic. Just to go over the height variance again, nowhere on this building is there any point of it that's 35 feet above the grade that you're on. It's just this really strange, long, rectangular lot. And so to take the four corners of the lot like we do for, or four corners of the building like we do for all buildings in the state to find the height, I did a diagram that's in your packet that kind of shows how we are trying our best to comply, and nowhere does this building seem large or onerous at all. In fact, there's 40-foot tall buildings all around here that are actually beyond the height of this if you factored in the four corners. It's just the 400-foot length throws us into a strange category. So even with all that, we're only just a little over 5 feet above the 40-foot allowed height here, even taking the average grade and slicing it across. So that's the relief that we're looking for, but again, it's only because the farthest low point is 400 feet away down 21 feet. So I think that's understandable. This is a very unique property. And then finally, to close out the boral trim. So all the trim you see here, will be boral, which is it's a brand name for a fly ash material that is dimensionally just like wood. It just doesn't rot, and it hold paint for about 15 years, where cedar trim on this building would probably need new paint, as we all know, on Aquinic Island, maybe every 3 to 5 years. And so just seems like a good alternative. We've used PVC trim for years in substitute for cedar trim for this very reason. However, on many projects like this, Tennis Hall of Fame edition that I did on Memorial in Newport, the sun, when it bakes on PVC, actually makes it change too much. So any joints or seams get blown apart, and just have problems with that. Boral solves that by being a very stable material over time. Again, it's the full thickness of trim. You can cut it, you can route it, all that. And when painted, you would have no idea that it's wood or boral underneath that paint. So I feel like it's a very applicable use here. We're doing a condo, so obviously long-term maintenance for this building is an important factor that anyone would want on any building, but imagine if you have 32 owners, you want that to last as long as possible. So we feel like it's a reasonable request, still getting all the look of dimensional trim that you would want out of any natural material, but it is one of the waivers we're requesting.
Thank you. Questions? Joe, then Mike?
Yeah, Spencer, talk to me about the site lighting. I'm seeing lots of lights.
So we have lighting over the doors, which is code-wise. We have one over the car door. These are fully cut-off lights, so they're dark sky compliant.
Okay.
Just adding a gentle, almost residential feel to each of these car openings. But that's what we're doing for site lighting around here, so it'll be close to the building, not out at the perimeter. And then we'll have the signage on the front and the back that'll have just some general gooseneck lighting that'll, again, be...
Is there going to be any parking lot? I mean, I know there's no parking lot, but any lighting for the 43 other,
Yeah,
spaces?
we don't
Okay.
think so. It's not a traditional parking lot in that way, and we feel like with this many residential style cutoff lights at the building, you're going to get enough spill to
All right.
be safe.
Mike?
Maybe this is for Ron. Does that sign, kind of meet requirements, like that we specify in our ordinances?
We don't typically review the sign design. That's done by the building official at the time of permitting. They will have to comply with the sign ordinance. I don't know if what they're showing on the screen complies.
It's really a placeholder for now.
Move to the microphone, please.
Yeah, it's really a placeholder sign for now, and we'll work with the building official
Okay.
when we get to that point as to making sure it complies.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
Yeah, I do. One other.
Bill?
So Spencer, I had asked earlier about the two-level arrangement on the inside. So there are there lofts in these units? So
There are lofts. I can speak to that. So there's ability for a lift to be in the bay, as we spoke about earlier, but there's also a small spot that you can sit up top and have additional storage or a little soft seating area for you and your friends to hang out in. It's meant to just basically be in parcel with the car. So almost a mezzanine, if you can imagine. Sometimes probably be used for additional storage for things for the car, but other times maybe be decked out as sort of a quasi-sitting room.
Yeah, so I would say, so I support the application. This, and I hope that this thing gets rented to the hilt with 32, 40, 64 vehicles at some point. But it looks a lot like a tradesman center. Respectfully, I mean, the design is very nice. I would caution that, and I probably would like to suggest as part of the recommendation that this property be used for vehicles only, no repairs, and no outdoor storage. because those are the things I see creep into potential units and uses like this. So those are the things I'm going to suggest. But I like the design, I support the concept, and so far, so good with me. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Well, you've asked all but one of my, I have one additional question. Mr. Henderson mentioned that the lifts are not hydraulic, they're electric, but you could still have a significant spill from the vehicles themselves. And so my question is do you have accommodation to contain a spill within the unit? So it doesn't flow outside and contaminate the exterior?
We'll have Mr. Henderson come up to address that.
Sir, I've looked at about 20 of these types of projects, from very basic one-car roller-in type of thing and up to this size of unit, and none of them have had any type of systems to catch oil spills because they frankly don't work on the cars there at the unit, other than to tinker with it. We will require that they have absorbent pads if they're working on their car. I don't see too many billionaires working on their cars, so I don't think we're going to have much of a problem. If you ever go to the Monterey Motorsport website, they have a site camera, and it's the quietest 80 units you've ever seen of anything. Nothing goes on there. So I suspect that we will have the same use here. I'm not worried about a trailer center creep or anything like that, because these will all be Type A's that own their Type A cars that want to have a perfectly controlled and operated condo facility with just luxury car aficionados. So we can put in as much as we like in the condo docks to make sure that there's no stupidity going on where they drain the oil down the road. But I also think 31 other owners would object strenuously if something like that happened, and they would correct it.
So if I understand your answer, there is no accommodation to contain a spill. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So if a spill occurs, who would be responsible for it?
The unit owner, and if he had trouble, he would call the property manager.
If the spill went outside the building, who would be responsible?
Well, I think we're anticipating a lot more liquid than what normally comes with a car, but is it possible that 5 quarts would fall on the ground and someone couldn't fix it? Possibly.
Well, I'm
but-
just thinking, a small berm right at the entrance of the garage would solve the problem easily, and I'm wondering if you would consider that.
Well, if we put I guess a steel lip on the concrete, which would help it last longer as the cars go in and out, we could possibly have a small channel back. That would be about 1/8 of an inch, so if there was any spill, if you look at the volume of 1/8 of an inch over 25 by
Yeah,
31,
yeah, I understand.
big
Yeah,
volume.
Yeah,
So that would capture just about anything.
yeah.
You could probably wash your car in there and not get out of it.
It would be worth putting in, I think.
Pardon?
I said I think it would be worth putting in,
I think
installing.
we can do that reasonably
Yeah.
easily.
Thank you. You all asked my other questions, so I don't have any other questions. Check my, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anton Viveris, 1 Admiralty Drive, Apartment 11, Middletown, Rhode Island. I'd like to ask a question. Why did the town adopt design standards in the first place? Does anybody know?
Yes. So there'd be a standard approach to the way the buildings should look, somewhat resembling what New England means architecturally.
Okay. To keep, my estimation was to keep the aesthetic beauty of the town and protect the watershed. Does this meet the beauty of the town? Does this represent the town? Does these buildings blend in with the natural beauty of the town?
They're in the industrial park, if nobody mentioned it to you.
I understand that, and we have had a lot of discussion what was going on in the industrial park, and some of the requirements there have been laxed. And here tonight on your agenda, you have 3 under old business for a change waiver to section 521, and you have 2 under new business. I don't think, and you're gonna have people working on their cars. They have supposedly a way of catching the drain. Any containment has to be maintained. Who's gonna maintain it? If somebody spills 4 or 5 quarts of oil, where's it gonna go? How is it contained? Personally, I think you're gonna be opening up a big can of worms and Pandora's box if you allow this to go through. I'm glad to see Mr. Weber made reference to zoning requirements in the last discussion. I think any new proposal should have to stand muster against the zoning, and the comp plan, and the regulations of this town. If you start giving variances, then what do you got zoning for? What do you got requirements for? You change it for one, you have to change it for everybody else. Otherwise, you're playing favorites. There was an incident a few years ago where there was a lawsuit brought and the judge said that the zoning board overstepped their authority. Let's take whatever is proposed and see if it fits the zoning and the comp plan. If it does, then it doesn't need any approval. They have it by right. It's when it doesn't. And if proposals met the zoning, there'd be no need for these meetings, both the planning and the zoning. If they come before you, they're trying to circumvent the zoning. And it's going to hurt the town. We live on an island. We have a water problem. I would strongly suggest that you take that into consideration. If it doesn't meet planning and zoning, unless it's unless it qualifies as a need, such as someone lived here for 20 years, and then he wants to put a garage on his house because he's afraid he's going to fall when he gets out in the winter and scrape his windshield. So he wants to build a garage and he needs 5 foot from the setback. That's a hardship. Is this a hardship? I ask you. Is anything proposed on this agenda a hardship? If it's not a hardship, it's got to be turned down. The only way to circumvent or to grant variances is under hardship. This isn't a hardship. It's a commercial entity. You got to protect this town and its aesthetic beauty. Otherwise, what do you got? I heard you got designs from the West Coast. Who cares what something is designed on the West Coast? We're trying to protect this town. California. That's California. Look at the state California's in. You can't even walk on the street without people sleeping in tents. Is that what we need? Like California? That's a bad example, California. Although they say, as goes California, so does the rest of the country, because everybody follows. Nobody's got the intestinal fortitude to stand up and say no. The people elect people to office, to appoint people to boards and commission that's going to put the people of this town and the town as a whole first. I heard you should be concerned and dealing just what's before you. No, you have to deal with what's in the zoning, the comp plan, and what the regulations are in this town. The town and the people got to come first before this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Hold on, that's what.
Sorry.
Anyone? And now I'll take-
Sorry, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is closed. May I have a motion for a favorable recommendation and approval of waivers,
So,
subject to conditions, at least two, that they provide something at the entrance to contain spills, and another one that they prohibit outdoor storage and work on the vehicles.
so can I add to that, Paul?
Sure,
That's
go ahead.
okay? So I agree with Paul. Number one, that I would move approval that it complies with all of the required findings as stated in Ron's memo dated August 2nd, that with the conditions that are stated in the memo as well, TRC recommendations, recommended conditions of approval within Zone 1, and the additional conditions with regards to the lip, is it, Paul, or
Spillage?
spillage lip?
So
And outdoor
there's no
storage.
conditions relative to Zone 1, as I indicated earlier,
Yeah.
that...
My bad, okay.
Yeah.
Needed, yeah.
Take those out.
No, it's actually my bad for putting it in the memo, but, so you don't have to worry about Zone 1.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Yep, so it's, I have three conditions, which would be, we've eliminated the condition regarding the gate because the gate is not going to be installed. So the first condition I have would be, as printed in the memo, regarding the trash receptacles being approved, but subject to the approval of the town planner.
Yeah.
The second one would be the one that Bill referenced earlier, that the property be used only for vehicle storage, no vehicle repair, commercial repair, and no outdoor storage.
Yeah.
And then the third condition being the spill containment.
Yeah, okay.
And
Anything
then
else that people,
In terms of the waivers, there were 9 on the original list. Waivers number 3 and 4 have been eliminated in favor, again, of the staff reviewing with the applicant the trash receptacle issue. So then you're just looking at 7 waivers, 1 and 2 on that list, and then 5 through 9.
So, yeah,
is everyone clear on that?
yes, that's fine.
Everyone
Thank you, Ron,
clear?
for clarifying that.
Yeah. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes.
Thank you, guys, good luck.
At this point, I would like to move items 4D and 4E to after 5C, so that we can deal with applications. So the next item to be addressed is, next item is item 5A, a public hearing, application for development plan review by Building of Taste LLC for alterations to a facade of an existing commercial building facing a public right-of-way and accompanying site work, and request for waivers from certain commercial development design standards of Section 521 of the Middletown Rules and Regulations regarding the subdivision and development of land, and recommendation to the Zoning Board of Review on the application for development in Zone 1 of the Watershed Protection District. Property is located at 170 Quidneck Avenue. Tax Assessor's Plat 115 SE, lots 145, 146, and 147. Mr. Martland.
Motion to open
We
the
have
public
a-
meeting?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing is open. Mr. Martland.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Martland, on behalf of the owner and applicant, Buildings of Taste LLC, and its principal, Patty Watson. Patty owns an interior decorating business, and she recently purchased this property, which is located at 170 Aquidneck Avenue. And, you know, I call it the Paradise Cleaners Building. The board did take the opportunity yesterday, at least almost the entire board was there for a site visit, so I know that you're familiar with where the property is and the site. We're here tonight for two issues. One is for the development plan review. The development plan review is being conducted because there are some changes that are being made to the facade of the structure, the front facade, which involve the addition of a front entry, a covered front entry that Patty is looking to, you know, improve and upgrade the look of the structure. There's also a deck that's being proposed on the rear of the structure, and to rebuild the staircases or staircase located in the rear. That is triggering the requirement for the special use permit for the watershed protection district. And so that requires a recommendation of the planning board to the zoning board. Patty's purchased this property so that it will be actually primarily an owner-occupied property, and I'll have her explain that. And so she wants to upgrade this, try to bring it more into conformity with the building standards for Middletown, at least the look of that, so that it's a softer look. It complements the surrounding residential area, and to make some minor modifications to the site to actually add some landscaping to this, what is already a fully developed site. I also have Chris Honor with us, who is the architect of record, who will go through those plans. But if I could call Patty up now to sort of briefly explain who she is and her business and what she intends to do.
Good evening, Patty Watson, 170 Aquidneck Avenue. I am the new owner of the Paradise Building. And as Dave mentioned, I'm moving my team of 15 people from Jamestown to Middletown. Big move for us. We will occupy the first and second floors of the building. The building really hasn't received significant upgrades in some time. So we have replaced all of the windows, for example, and doing extensive interior renovations as well. So the front entry and the deck are exterior improvements that I think go along with the appeal that we are bringing to the exterior of the building. And will certainly enable my team of 15 to be able to use some of those outdoor areas as well.
I don't think I've got any further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could please call Chris Honor.
Good evening.
Chris, could you,
Identify yourself, please.
Chris Arner, architect.
could you sort of briefly describe the site conditions presently?
Sure. Currently, there's an existing building on the site. As you know, it was built in, I believe, the 1980s. Brick, red brick, brown brick exterior, with a lot of asphalt parking around the perimeter of the building, the front and back, and landscape, landscape buffers to the south side, and existing plantings to the north, and to the west is a view out to the reservoir.
And could you please explain the proposed improvements that you've designed for the front facade of the building as well as the back?
Sure. The exterior improvements, first to the building itself, We're going to paint the building an off-white color so that, greatly change the exterior, the appearance of it. The windows, as Patty has mentioned, have all been replaced. They were kind of aluminum casement windows. They've been changed to awnings and casements with divided lights. All those windows have been upgraded to impact windows because of the commercial zone. The gutters and downspouts will be replaced, and that's really kind of the cosmetics of the exterior of the building. As far as the additions on the front side, as you probably know, there's currently a handicap ramp that extends from the south to the north of the building. That's the primary entrance into the building. And what we would like to do is add a covered entry with steps facing Aquidneck Avenue. This at least will give, a covered area, but also a presence to the front of the building. So that is one item that we're requesting. It doesn't, the front of the building doesn't require any zoning approval. There's no setback issues. Moving around to the rear of the building, the proposal is to add a deck off of the first floor level. That side of the building, the first floor south side of the building, is Patty's kind of client presentation area. So that's where she'll have her meeting rooms, her materials library. That's where she'll be meeting with clients and reviewing their projects. We felt the deck is an important feature, especially with the view to the reservoir to the west. The other issue we have with the interior is that there are two egress stairs, one at the front of the building and a second one at the back. The second interior egress stair that connects the first floor to the second floor doesn't meet current code. It's very steep and narrow. So in order to capture some of the interior space, we are proposing to replace the current stair that's on the back of the building with the stair that connects exterior egress stair from the second floor to the first floor deck and then on down to the parking area at the rear. And then which will then meet code, exactly. Yeah, there's not much room to maneuver and try to add a second code compliant stair to the interior of the building. So that's really the exterior improvements as far as additions and cosmetic improvements to the building.
Now, there have been some recent revisions to some of the requirements for the DPR, including providing for bike road. You've incorporated those into the site plans, correct?
That has been incorporated. We incorporated, based on the parking calculations, we more than exceed the minimum requirements. We are reducing one parking space to accommodate the front entryway. Based on those calculations, we need a bike rack for 6 bicycles, and that is positioned to the south of the new deck on the south of the building. That area, we're going to increase the planted grass area, move the parking to the south a bit.
And presently on the south side of that building, the parking area goes right up to the building edge. Right?
Correct. It goes up to the building. There's a small planter and an air handler along the south side. We're just going to extend that planted grass area to the south a bit and, pull the parking to the south, closer to the other side.
Make sure you're talking to the mic, please.
Sure, sorry. The one other item that is, I think came up in the report was the screening of the dumpsters. I did bring a revised plan to show where the dumpsters are going to be and the screening. Rather than have two locations, we decided to consolidate them into one location at the north of the property.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, David.
Chris, could you, just for the record, explain the location of where the dumpsters would be?
Sure. On Plan A 1.1, on the top of the page, you see a dumpster enclosure. I don't think it was mentioned, but Paradise Cleaning is going to remain a tenant in the ground floor of the building. They currently have one dumpster that they use that's set at the north side of the parking lot, which is not screened. That dumpster will remain. Patty requires 2 dumpsters for her business. One is dedicated for cardboard recycling, and the second is for everyday trash. So the 3 dumpsters plus a smaller kind of, town, the smaller 30 by 30 trash bins will all be enclosed within the 72-inch chain link screened dumpster area.
I've got a question. I was under the impression that everybody was out of there. However, the Paradise guys are going to stay in the basement?
They have a long-term lease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I said, hey, where you going? The guy looked at me like, hey,
We're not going anywhere.
He may have not been the guy to talk to.
All right,
Who knows?
great. Okay, thank you.
They are a tenant.
Chris?
Yes.
So there are some waiver requests that the planning department has correctly identified in the memo. What the first waiver request is for exterior lighting for the fixture D on sheet A6 pointing skyward. I know that we've discussed that. Please advise the board and deal with that.
Please speak into the mic.
Oh,
It's hard for us to hear you.
Yes, so the question was, with respect to the first request for waiver dealing with the exterior lighting, how is the applicant dealing with that request?
What we're going to do is that light, those particular lights were shown as an uplight accent light to light the existing birch tree that's at the northeast corner of the property. We're not going to have those lights pointed up. They're going to be landscape lights that'll
Right.
point down into
Right.
the bed. So we're going to remove that
Right.
as a request.
The second item was dealing with the proposed screening for the dumpsters, which has been addressed with the revised plan, correct?
Yes, it has.
The third item is the receptacle design.
Also on the plan that you have in front of you that was just handed out, you'll see towards the bottom of the south side of the building, there is a trash receptacle shown. And on the front page of what I handed out is a cut sheet for the trash receptacle itself.
So the first 3 waiver requests can be all
Eliminated.
withdrawn.
Yeah. Okay.
The fourth item is the synthetic ASIC trim that's being proposed, and we're still currently proposing.
Correct. We're really adding a minimal amount of trim to the building. The existing soffits along the perimeter of the building will remain. The only area that requires new trim is for the kind of covered entry portico. So that is where we would use AZAC. And then likewise at the deck on the back for the miscellaneous trim on the back side of the building and deck.
The fifth item is the planted landscape doesn't meet the minimum 25% of the project area. And I would say that there's an existing condition. I mean, this is already a developed site. We're actually improving the amount of landscaping somewhat by providing for additional landscaping on the south side, but we still have to maintain the parking areas and the egress. So that is I guess a waiver request that will still be requested. It was also noted that there are no screening elements along the front or rear property lines. Again, this is a, you know, an existing site condition. There's parking in the front of the property. It's very close to the right-of-way, and the state is going to be, as the board is aware, of doing some improvements relative to the along Aquidneck Avenue. So there's no landscaping being proposed across the front or fencing. And along the rear property line, there's no screening, and we would, the edge of the pavement goes up to the property line there, and then it's the city's property, City of Newport's property.
That looked all torn up in disarray yesterday. So at this particular time, I wouldn't think you want to do anything back there until the Newport Water Company or the city gets their act together, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't want to put up screening either, because that would kind of,
Yeah.
you know, this board was instrumental in changing the fencing design for that Cumberland Farms property.
Right.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
mentioned yesterday, which really improved the vistas.
Yeah, I think you want to be looking at the pond and not
Stockade
with
fence.
global warming coconut trees back there, you know?
And then the eighth item dealt with the 10-foot landscape buffer is not provided around all the building and parking lots, and that is a you know, an existing condition. There is an improvement on the south side of the building. There is some landscaping also along the front area between the building and the walkway, is that correct? With the ramp?
Correct. On the north side of the building, there's existing pine trees that are growing, you know, 15 feet off the building and along the whole north property line. Those are all to remain. They're existing. They've been there. There's no plan to remove them. They'll remain as a planted buffer.
And street trees, are we, this indicates only one street tree is being provided. And the reasoning being is that they would be they're every 30 feet, it would be kind of located in the driveway and parking.
It's difficult to determine, you know, to plant street trees when they're be torn up when the Rhode Island Department of Transportation completes their work, because they actually have to excavate into Patty's property in order to do the new sidewalks and curb cuts. So we did only show one street tree. In talking with Patty, there's, you know, additional trees that can be planted, but at this time it's difficult to you know, determine where they should be.
So will anything be done after that project is completed?
Yes, I think, yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, Patty is going to talk to the state about, you know, the curb cuts and make sure that they're where they should be and work appropriately. And then there's no reason why trees couldn't be added at that time once there was a better plan for exactly when that was going to take place.
BJ?
Yes. I was just wondering if the tree commission had taken a look at this property, and if they did, what their recommendation was. It seems to me that one of the things that really is missing that would give it a lot of really special atmosphere would be somehow some more landscaping in the back side of it. And I know that that's difficult because of the parking and everything, but I don't know if there's any way possible. Did the tree commission look at this?
The plan was forwarded to the tree commission. Unfortunately, the tree commission meeting hasn't happened since, so we don't have any comments from the tree commission.
All right, because I think that they probably would have some comments, particularly at this site, because it lends itself to some wonderful, wonderful low landscaping with trees or some type of shrubbery or something, if possible.
And we're proposing some additional landscaping, isn't that correct, along the south property?
Yeah.
That is correct. There's a line of trees along the south property line. There's currently taller planting from the hotel right next door. So there is a line of trees along that south side that extends. You can see there's 6 of them and then an existing tree in the corner. I think, you know...
If I could just...
Is there a hand mic there, Dave?
No, I don't see one. There were proposal for trees along this property line.
We can't see. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So,
Now he comes up.
they,
That's to the south.
thank you.
Huh?
That's to the south.
To the south?
So while trees couldn't be provided across the front property line, we're proposing to put some across the south property line as an attempt to, while it doesn't technically meet the requirements for every 30 feet along the front, there are the addition of deciduous trees here to meet the spirit of the regulations.
Yes, I think an arborist would have some very good suggestions too. And be very compassionate about the price, this site.
Other comments? Bill?
I do. So I support what you're doing here. I love the change in the building and all of the waivers. And, we talked on the site visit yesterday about the back of the property, how there's so much potential there with the pond and you mentioned the vistas, Dave, and I think we've done a real nice job, and I'd like to see you consider that. When we do a full site plan review or a full development plan review, we talked yesterday also about the whole property and what we can affect. And one of the things that sticks out to me, and as I was driving away yesterday, it hit me, and I see it tonight, and it hasn't come up yet, but the storage units on the north side of the building that are conspicuously identified on some of the plans and not so much on the other. And I know why. I know that's the Paradise storage bins, if you will, but considering everything you're doing with this property, that unit stands out as a sore thumb to me. And, I need to ask, is that something that can be removed? I just think it's the only thing left on that property that really should not be there.
I couldn't agree more. It's currently in their lease. They have extensions on their lease until 2028. But as soon as they are no longer on the property, the storage units will no longer be there.
Okay.
And you did not enter into the lease, right?
Correct. The lease was a part of my purchase and conveyed with the sale.
Have you approached them about considering maybe finding alternate means for them?
I can do that. Yeah, I'm very open to that. To be honest, I don't know if they'll really be there that much longer. They have extensions on their lease that they can employ, but I'm not sure they're really going to be there that long.
Very well. Thank you for answering. I'd suggest maybe a condition that one, when the lease arrangement ends with the current leasee, that they're removed, and two, that you will make an attempt to speak to them about finding an alternate means of storage for that facility. But other than that, you've done a tremendous job, and I fully support what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm happy to comply with that request.
Other comments? Could you comment on surface water?
Yes, so, as, the the board's aware of being out at the site. Again, this is a situation where you've got an existing condition. The surface water, stormwater, runs from Aquidneck Avenue across the site. The low point is the rear of the site. The roof leaders, they empty onto the parking lot. The deck that's being proposed is being built over existing impervious surface, the parking area. So there's no increase in any of the impervious surfaces. So it doesn't trigger any additional requirements for stormwater measures. Now, I know it's located within the Zone 1 of the Watershed Protection District because of the proximity to the pond. I would note, however, that unlike properties that may be on Bailey's Brook, which ultimately the water finds its way into the pond, the city of Newport has a moat around the pond. So actually, the stormwater ultimately discharges at Easton's Beach. It doesn't discharge into a drinking water body. And the moat system also does, when fully reconstructed in the dams, does provide for water quality measures. It allows for sedimentation to settle as the water works its way down to the pre-treatment system that the city has, the UV light system at the end. So there are treatment measures off-site unrelated to this property.
Other comments? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is closed. May I have a motion for a favorable recommendation, subject to the conditions in the document, plus you mentioned another one?
Maybe if Ron could just go through the
Yep.
waivers first, because it looks like
Yeah.
there's some that aren't necessary any longer.
Right, so on the waivers, as was just discussed, the first three on the list contained in the memo, those three waivers are no longer necessary because they've been addressed by the applicant. So it would be waivers requests 4 through 9. So that's six waivers that you're considering. Regarding the conditions, there were 4 recommended conditions contained in the memo regarding modification to the landscape management plan. Actually, number 2 goes away because that's the trash receptacle design. Compliance with chapters 151 and 153 of the town ordinances regarding construction site runoff and stormwater management. And then our other standard condition relative to Zone 1, which is the use of chemicals and fertilizers shall be prohibited within Zone 1. And then the 2 that Bill suggested adding, which would be that the storage unit currently on the site be removed at the expiration of the current lease with the tenant.
Or before? Or before?
Well, the second condition
Second
was
condition, I think,
that
addresses
the
that.
applicant would speak with the current
Okay.
tenant about possible relocation of that storage. So it was split into 2 conditions.
Alternate location, off-site. Alternate
Off-site.
location, off-site.
All right.
And if she could just report that back to you, it would be fine.
And is it possible to do anything about street landscaping once the DOT project is completed?
I say that that's so far down the line that I don't know that you would want to try to condition this application. I think you would just have to trust that the town, in working with DOT, because the town has its own streetscapes project, which we'll be working with DOT when those two
Okay.
projects go together. We'll be looking at street trees and other landscape improvements.
Okay, thank you. So may I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I meant to ask
Yeah,
that
yeah,
beforehand.
yeah, I'll do
I meant to bring that up
Yeah.
beforehand.
At the suggestion of my colleague, I will move item 5C up next. That should only take a short time.
Mr. Brennan.
So the
Sorry.
next item is item 5C, request of Mark Brennan, developer of the Stonebridge Farm subdivision, for the planning board to set the amount of performance security for remaining subdivision improvements, 430 Mitchell's Lane, tax assessor's plat 124, lots 13, 14, 14A, 15.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Martland on behalf of Mr. Brennan and Stonebridge Farm subdivision. Tonight, we're here before the board to request the setting of a bond for the completion of the improvements. Dupree Engineering provided a cost estimate that was reviewed by the town engineer. The town engineer had some revisions that he thought needed to be made. We agreed with Mr. Hall. Those revisions were added. So the total cost estimate for the remaining items is $248,186. We're required to post 125% of that amount. So that would the security must equal 125%, or Ron calculated that to be $310,232.50. And so we respectfully request that the board set that bond amount tonight.
Ron, do you have any comments on this?
I think Dave covered it. The applicant is, or I guess I should say, the developer has been in the process of developing the site in conformance with the approved subdivision plan. He desires to record the plan at this point prior to their improvements being completed, which, in order to do that, he does have to post that performance security equal to 125% of the approved estimated cost of the work left to be done. So that is the amount that's been reviewed and approved by the town engineer, and it's the planning board's prerogative to approve that security amount, and then the town, myself, the finance director, will work with the developer to ensure that security is posted before the plan is recorded.
I'll make a motion to support that recommendation.
Second.
The recommendation is that the planning board recommend a performance security of $310,232.50. Motion is made and seconded.
Seconded.
Is there any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Beautiful property, Mark. Beautiful. Took a ride down there. Looks very nice. Very nice. Good work so far.
The next,
May I say one thing?
sure, BJ.
Mr. Brennan, you are wonderful with stone walls. That may be a very funny thing to say, but on Forest Avenue, in your project on Bluegrass Drive, that stone wall is fabulous.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
closed it. We definitely closed it, yeah.
Okay, the next item is item 5B, application for development plan review by CCE Development LLC for a new commercial building and additions and modifications to an existing commercial building, and request for waivers from certain commercial development design standards of Section 521 of the Middletown Rules and Regulations regarding the subdivision and development of land. Property is located at 499 East Main Road, Tax Assessors Plat 113, Lot 27. And thank you for letting me bring that other item up first. Mr. Martland.
Dave, before I get going here, Spencer just gave me a drive. I don't know which plans you want me to put up. Which plans do you want me to put up?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do that.
That one.
Before you start, may I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to open a public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is open. Mr. Martland.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Martland on behalf of CCE Development LLC and its principal, Jeff Lipshires. Jeff is purchasing the property, the Grange building that was formerly the site of Plumby's Restaurant. And he's looking to make some additions to that property to accommodate his business, which I'll let Jeff explain in a bit. So we're here before the board this evening for the development plan review, review of the proposal for the additions to the main Grange building, as well as the accessory structure that's being proposed, the garage. And with us tonight, we have Mike Russell, the engineer of record on this project, and Mike's got familiarity with the site because he was involved in the proposal that was before the board and the zoning board related to Plumby's. And Spencer McComb, who has prepared the architectural plans. So if I could just briefly call up Jeff to provide some testimony about what his intentions are. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Jeff Lipshires, owner of 499, well, soon to be owner of 499 East Main Road. And I am the owner of CCE Development, which is a real estate holding company that we formed for the purchase of this property. I'm also the owner of J2 Construct in Middletown.
J2 Construct is a construction management company, is that right?
That's correct. We are a construction management company.
Talk into the microphone, please.
Yep. Construction management company. We started about 3 years ago, and currently have a total of 50 employees, most of which are in the field running projects throughout Rhode Island and southeastern Mass. And we chose this property obviously because it's a great piece of property. It's highly visible. We have a professional office, and we really like the kind of history of the Grange building, and our modifications to the site really reflect that with the complementary architecture that we're using for the accessory structure and the changes to the existing building. And our plan is to move into this spot with our professional offices, and so that we wouldn't have any vehicles or anything sitting outside, or any tools or anything like that. That's the need for the accessory structure.
And you're also aware of all, the various restrictions relative to construction equipment and heavy trucks.
Yep.
Because those same restrictions apply to where you currently operate from, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're actually getting kicked out of our home by Blake, right? So, but I think if he was here, he could speak to the fact that we, at any one time, to my dismay, we may have 3 pickup trucks in the parking lot, which means that they're not on being used by the guys on the site. So,
You're presently located at 55
John Clark, right.
Road in the office
park, right.
And that's the location where Blake Henderson's now proposing the car vault, right?
Right, which is currently strictly an office use, and we don't have anything outside or located in that parking lot or anything at the building. So most of our equipment is on the site. Very rarely we have to bring it back. It doesn't go to another site, and that's again the reason for the accessory structure. Our plan is to, because Ralph Plum and his team made such a great investment in the building, our plan is to modify the building to maintain the restaurant space. We're gonna, the proposal we have is to add some dormers. There's a lot of height in the building. So we're gonna kind of divide the building in half. And it's really maintaining the existing use, which is restaurant and office, but we're gonna add a little bit more office space for our use and a mezzanine for the restaurant to keep their use functional as well. And we will have a tenant for the restaurant to run that. And we will occupy the bulk of the property for ourselves. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We're trying to create a really attractive property that reflects the type of work that we do. We're a very high-end builder, and we need a home that reflects who we are, and that includes the maintenance of the site and the maintenance of the buildings. We do a lot of historic work as well, and I really like the idea of the Grange theme, and I think when Spencer goes through the plans, you'll see that as well. And we've taken great care to make sure it fits in well and it doesn't take away from the main structure.
Questions?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Bill.
I think it sounds, excuse me, I think it sounds like a very nice
You can go.
plan.
Thank you.
I said, I think it sounds like a very nice plan that you have for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
So
I know that there are going to be some questions relative to some of the drainage issues that were mentioned, I think both at the TRC and during the site visit. I do have Mike Russell to go over those particular issues.
Why don't you bring him up and let's hear what he has to say?
Yes, yeah, I agree. We're also going to hear from Spencer on
Yes.
the architectural.
Absolutely, yes. We're going to have Spencer go through
Okay.
all the architectural
Yep.
stuff.
Pick your poison.
Given you know, Jeff's testimony, I think I'd like to call Spencer up to go through that, and then move into the engineering aspect.
Doesn't matter to me which one goes first.
Your call.
Spencer,
Pick your poison.
the plans were already going to be up.
Spencer McComb, Courts and Design. So, let's see. We've been working hard at doing some three-dimensional renderings for you guys so that you can see it a little bit more than the 2D that's in your packets. And I have those to hand out. We also have those for the big screen. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay. This is a full packet, so the back, the last like 6 are the colored renderings that we worked on recently, so you could have a better understanding of what we're looking at.
Thanks, man. Like that.
Thank you.
Like that. Pretty picture.
Ron, if we could go to maybe the aerial shots toward the end.
Thank you. Just a moment. Thank you, Dave.
That's probably good. Give an overview. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
I'll let you take a minute and just look at those last, I think 6 sheets have some color renderings that hopefully bring to life a little bit more of what the 2D drawings that you initially had show. To give an overview, we are proposing a accessory building that will do a couple of things. One, it'll screen the residential side of this property even more than vegetation. So Jeff and his company is looking for an area to bring trucks, to bring some of their materials in, and so that would be a non-habitable, habitated garage building. Now, given the height limit and this intention for this to be a really nice-looking building, what we've done is create a New England-style barn structure that could house these you know, his uses and the other storage components that he'll have, so everything can remain indoors. That's a big part of what we're trying to do here, is anything that he'd have would be in this building as far as additional materials and whatnot. So this building does that, and it also doesn't try to steal from what the Grange is, but be its own building, but be complementary to it. It's smaller in scale, it's lower in height, and it's tucked behind it, at least from the West Main Road or East Main Road side. And it sort of creates a little frontage as it comes into Aquidneck. So that is what we're doing there. It's all by right as far as the zoning goes to put that building there. And then the Grange, I was the architect for Plummy's, the renovation that happened there. And so it was sad to see him go. I think everybody was a little sad about that, and the COVID crisis didn't really help out much. But I'm very familiar with the building. I'm familiar with the intention of the town to keep the Grange a historic icon. And so as looking at the building, a lot of that has to do with that front facade. And some of the things that I think were missed on the last go-around were a couple of windows in the front of the Grange that were faked. Those are on the drawings and whatnot, but I think everyone sort of felt like, man, it'd be nice if those were real. So we're going to bring those back. And so the original Grange facade will have the original windows back put in them, at least on this front elevation side that everyone can see. And then the side elevations, there's a long, as we all know this building, a long gable that runs all the way across. And to really capture the second floor, and maybe we can flip to another Ron image. Yeah. Maybe go back a few. There you go. So to capture some usable square footage, obviously this building doesn't need to be a big hall anymore as it once was. It'll have the restaurant portion back where the brand new commercial kitchen is, and then the front portion will be the building side. But to use that square footage without extending the building vertically at all, but putting a low-slung shed dormer that runs the length of the building, and then extending the canopy that now protects the top of the stairway on this side. We're just extending that out a little bit so people coming to eat here would have a little private spot that they could sit outside, not down on the grass area, which will still be available to sit, but a little bit more enclosed, keep the sun off you a little bit more, maybe even in a drizzle you could sit out there. So just kind of creating a little outdoor eating area on this side. If we could go back a slide.
Go the other way.
Forward. Yeah, okay, that's a good one. So this is the other side of the building. This is closer to where the construction building will be. Again, that building is designed to be appropriate with the standards in mind of scale and massing for New England-style buildings, trying to keep it low, almost residential scale, and then build up to the larger unit. Not to take away or mimic what's going on at the Grange, but really feel like an outbuilding that would be appropriate for that bigger building that we're taking over.
And still have that agrarian theme.
Exactly. So you see a gambrel roof here and sheds and cupolas. All of that is sort of in the idea of what we're looking to do, and tip our hat to what the use was, and even what the Grange was originally used for as a farming homestead. So on this side of the building, to gain some more space, we have a gable addition that attaches to this side, this being less impactful than the other side, which we see gets more visual than maybe from the Aquidneck side. So just changing it up a bit so we give some square footage for this addition. And then behind that will be a little area where the restaurant can sort of take food in as it does today, and also have dumpsters and things that will be sitting behind that. So screening all of that from the visual of the two main roads that are in front of it. And then beyond that will be a shed dormer that continues on, so that we can pick up some square footage on the second floor for a mezzanine in the restaurant space and office space on the second floor of the Grange building for the construction office. I don't know if I have much more. We can go through various materials, but the idea was to stay right inside of the design criteria for planning in Middletown. Looked at those before we designed any of this, and also just trying to maintain the general shape and scale and everything of that front facade for the Grange itself, which is really where the majority of the historical significance it still lies.
Questions? Bill?
No, comment.
Then Mike?
Poster child for the New England design that we look for. Really nice, sharp-looking design, thank you.
Yeah, we have a continuous battle when new things come here.
Art, hold on a second. Mike has the chair. Mike and then Art.
Oh, I like it very much. You know, when I look at the architectural drawings, I just wonder, does the accessory building, should that reflect the style of the Grange more? You know, I was looking more at the colors. I see more white in the Grange, and I see kind of grayish in the accessory building, and I see a little bit of a difference in siding, as far as the exterior materials and things like that. I'm not an architect, but I was just wondering, what you, how you come up with that type of a style,
Yeah, I can answer that, actually. So the Grange building is actually a red cedar shingle building that's painted white, and you actually get real close to it. You can see how old it is. When I first went to Spencer, I told him I wanted to, we talked about kind of creating a barn structure, and the first thing he said was, we got to do a gambrel, and I said, I don't want to do that. And then I found a picture and sent it to him. He said, that's exactly what I was talking about. So that's how we kind of came up with this, and it really to not take away from the Grange, the main Grange building. I think this rendering's great. These guys did a fantastic job, but really, I told Spencer that, I have a job that we're pulling all this amazing old board and batten stuff off, and it's all natural cedar and pine material. So I really want to use it on this building because it's going to go on and it's going to look old already. And so that's where we came up with the board and batten, and why it's limited to the heights it is, because those are the lengths I have to work with. And the upper part is actually going to be a Alaskan yellow wood cedar shingle that ultimately is going to turn to a light gray, where like a red cedar turns very dark. So I think it'll really work, kind of blend together really well, and it's still gonna be like a weathered gray building, light gray, and it's really going to complement the Grange being this big kind of main white structure. So that's how we came up with the scheme for that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, yeah. Is there going to be a basement in that accessory building, or is it just going to be on a slab?
We're not sure yet. There'll be probably some of both. Just it depends on water table, things like that, you know, what we're able to do.
Okay, thanks.
That's it. Art?
Well, I would just like to add my, I don't know what to even say. This is, in my 20 years on the planning board, the nicest, finest rendition of a New England building I have ever seen. And you get a lot of credit for it. I don't know how big a blue ribbon we can pin on that baby, but if everybody approached it with your imagination and accomplishment here, we would look a lot differently. And thank you very much.
Well said. Other comments?
I'll definitely accept those quotes in the paper. Anytime you want to compliment, certainly Spencer, but you can compliment J2 as well. So.
Of course.
I have a question. I too like the design, both of the modification to the Grange building and the design of the barn. The one thing that seems a little incongruous to me is the brown planking on the ramp and the deck and the front entrance. Could you just tell me why you chose that?
Well, it's Ipe, so it's a dark mahogany, really hard and weatherproof. And the idea was, when it was plummies, was that was going to stand up to the weather long term, especially as it was stairs and ramps. We didn't want something that was going to degrade over time. And so they used it horizontally as the railing system as well. And it just looks so interesting and nice compared to the white. And so a lot of, when you're thinking about historic issues or historic district issues, a lot of times you want to show that the new is different, so that when someone looks at it, they kind of get a feel for what was there and what wasn't. And so this was just a way to offset that. It'll eventually gray.
Yeah, no, I know mahogany and I like it, so.
Yeah.
Other comments? Is there, this is a public hearing? Anyone from the public?
We still got Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mike.
If Mike Russell can come up to go through the site plan and the drainage issues. Mike, if you could please state your name for the record.
Sure. Mike Russell, LDEC Engineering.
Talking to the mic, please.
Mike Russell, LDEC Engineering and Consulting, 680 Aquidneck Avenue.
Michael, you were involved in the original permitting for Plumbees, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you helped design the drainage systems for that, is that correct?
That is correct.
I guess it was raised during the TRC meeting that there were some issues relative to the current drainage basin located along Aquidneck Avenue, and some maintenance issues associated with that. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Can you please explain to the board why there was an issue with that basin and what is being done to correct and remediate that condition?
Sure. So I guess
If you can speak up, if you want to.
yeah. So to address that question directly, and we can expand on some of the other improvements as we get into the discussion. So when this site underwent construction, it was in it was the late fall of 2018. So the basin that is giving everyone heartburn and is a point of concern is that easterly basin, which is on the Aquidneck Avenue side of the parking area. Mr. Hall, Warren Hall, town engineer, this had come up within a few months after its initial construction. I would say early 2019, along with the former building inspector, Jack Kane, brought it to my attention, we then brought it to the attention of the current owner, that come springtime of 2019, we needed to go in there and do some remediation. That never happened. This was brought up multiple times by Warren to the owner, to myself. I spoke to the owner multiple times. It's just something that never got done. So going back to the original construction, not a good time of year to be doing earthwork in November. You're past your growing season. You can't get any vegetation to take and stabilize. And that particular year, my recollection was it was a horrific weather pattern. We had successive heavy rain events in December of that year. We had snow right before Christmas. I mean, it was 3 months of a tough situation on a basin that was trying to stabilize. So what happened? My opinion, Mr. Hall shares this opinion, there was just an overabundance of sediment accumulation in the bottom, and it locked it up like concrete. I think the biggest problem with that basin is infiltration. It doesn't, if you notice the other basin on the opposite side of the parking area, it's always dry. It's taken primarily roof water, and it did not have the sediment transfer, it didn't experience the sediment transfer that this basin did. So it never got cleaned out. It was just seeded the following spring. The proper maintenance, and to me the proper word is restoration, never took place on it. So with that said, now that this property is changing hands, we all, TRC, sees this as an opportunity to get in and restore that basin to its original condition. Actually, it's going to require some improvements, some adjustments, as well as the basin on the opposite side of the parking area. So the applicant understands this. This was explained at the TRC. I believe Ron's going to read, when he reads his conditions, that prior to any building permits, all the stormwater management needs to be prepared and to the satisfaction of Mr. Hall. So that's some general history there with that basin. I'm happy to address anything specific to that or anything beyond that relative to the site improvements.
So it wasn't just routine maintenance that led to the decision, right? It was...
Well, it was a lack of maintenance, for sure. But I think the timing of construction, along with some tough weather conditions immediately after it was constructed, led to it's lost its form, and mainly the bottom had silted up and was never removed and replaced, and that's what needs to happen. That bottom surface is probably the most important component to that basin, but it's lost some elevation. Its outlet is deformed. I mean, it needs a makeover.
Question, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead.
So suffice to say that this is a known problem. It was a known problem from the beginning. It's not, this was not discovered because of the sale of the building. The town knew about it, you knew about it, you were addressing it, or trying to get the current owner to address it. Through the changes in seasons and whatnot, it was difficult. So my point that I had mentioned yesterday at the site visit was that it wasn't just discovered upon the transaction of potentially buying the building. This was something that we knew about, and we were trying to address. It just coincidentally, the building was being changed.
Well,
That's fair.
that particular basin, not anything else.
Correct.
Stormwater related on the site. It's
That's
just
fair.
That particular basin.
That's fair, thank you.
Yeah, and I think the current owner, he was trying to get the business open.
Of course,
Then 2020.
of course.
Other
Really
comments?
very difficult.
Joe?
Yeah, Mike. The construction of the accessory building in the parking lot, does that necessitate any additional stormwater management?
Yeah, so the accessory building primarily displaces existing pavement, which contributes, the runoff is directed towards this basin you're talking about. If, Ron, can you go back to one of the perspectives, Spencer's renderings, shows the entire site. Okay,
I'm going to keep going. There you go.
Oh, the aerial? Yeah, there, no.
so you can see the roof lines there. So the idea is to put the East Main Road facing side of the building into that basin. So it will be directed to that. The rear of the building, we're contemplating roof chambers, a single row along that 88 feet of building in the overdig, and that can overflow right down to the culvert there at the driveway. So, and even the basin that we're talking about has a convenient safety valve right to that culvert at the driveway. That's where it was intended to go. But everything leading up to that needs to be restored. It's lost its function. But that, to answer your question, for the accessory structure, at least half of the building will go to that basin, and likely the back half of it will go to the subsurface system.
Is that Joe?
One more.
Bill?
One more question. So displacing the pavement and stormwater was addressed. 7 or 8 spaces are going away. And I note that we talked about it yesterday, that the previously approved building on site has expired, so that's not, if anything needs to be done in the future, they'll need potentially zoning relief for parking because you're losing spaces. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, so we would have to come back through a DPR process, depending on what was ultimately decided to be put there. And it could impact the parking, it could impact stormwater. That will all be, addressed in the future. So one of the things that Jeff did was he did show a plan that said, this area was permitted for another building. This is how things could be reconfigured from a parking perspective if the basins were replaced with underground detention basins with injection systems, and that was part of the packet to say, this is how that could be accomplished. But the plan would be to be coming back before the board under the current regulations.
I have a question. You mentioned that one of the factors in that retention basin failing was the time of the year that it was built. But I would think that should be addressed in the construction schedule. And so, without going back, I want to ask, what's going to keep this from happening again?
So I think obviously we need to get in the building, so we want to do our work as quick as we can. But the pond itself, I think, is what you're referring to. So I've already spoken to East Coast. Obviously we do a lot of work with them, so I want to get them in there now to fix this pond, and then we would hydroseed that and treat it, in September when the grass is going to grow in the fall, and whatever plantings are in there. That's the best time to do it. So if I can get them in there now with Ralph to clean this out, get it ready, that's I think what you're referring to is the growing season for the pond itself. It's not the construction of the structures. It's the construction of the pond. And since we've got to get it clean and get the vegetation to grow, the fall is the best time for that, because that's when you're going to get the best growing. Obviously right now it's not good, but in a month it'll be perfect. So hopefully that answers.
And that's when you anticipate doing this?
Well, I want Ralph to do it, so they're going to do it. They'll do it, imminently. So as long as we have the instructions of what they have to do, I'll get them in there to do it right away. I've already spoken to them about it, and they'll take care of it. So that'll probably happen even before we start. Because all the, you know, we obviously have a great concept here, and we've got 90% of the logistics worked out inside, but we still have to take the plans to the level where we can get a building permit. So while we're doing that, we'll be working on cleaning up that pond and getting it ready so that, you know, it's not gonna be an issue, because the last thing I want is that, I don't want those issues on our site, you know? So we wanna try and get this up and income producing, in the rest of the building as quickly as possible and get ourselves in, because Blake's gonna kick us out, so. But our lease is up in October 1st, so we're not gonna get in there for then, but pretty close. If you wanna see a fast project, watch this, because we're motivated. But the pond, that's something that can be done now, so.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? We have a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion made?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is closed. May I have a motion for a favorable recommendation for the development plan review, subject to conditions?
Anything changed, Ron?
I think this, Dave, there's no zoning relief on this, is there? Oh, there is.
I believe that there is a zoning relief. I said at the site visit yesterday, I didn't think there was. I've talked to Jeff, and he's in the process of preparing a petition relative to it. It deals with the setback issue for the mezzanine.
That's right.
The terraced area.
I
So
just
we
wanted
need to-
I just wanted to clarify what the
Subject to all the
motion was going to
waivers
be.
also.
Right, but I just wanted to clarify that you are providing a recommendation to the zoning board of review. If there was no zoning relief required, you'd be acting to approve the plan.
Yes.
But since there's zoning relief necessary, it is a recommendation to the zoning board.
Yes. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
And it would be subject to the conditions
And,
in the
correct.
memo.
Yes.
And regarding the waivers,
Yeah, that's-
the first two waivers on the list of 6 have been addressed with the conditions. And so therefore, there'd be 4 total waivers, 3 through 6 on the memo. And I request that the board, on the conditions, amend proposed condition number 6, where it says trash receptacles must be shown on the revised site plan, to add bike racks as well. So condition number 6 would read, trash receptacles and bike racks are noted on the landscaping plan, but are not shown on the site plan. And so if you could just note that
Okay.
that would be that condition.
You modify your
Yes,
motion to
absolutely.
accept that?
Absolutely.
Yes. And the seconder?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes.
If I could also just clarify, I know that Jeff is preparing the application for the zoning relief associated with the terrace area, but if he wanted to move forward with improvements that don't require the zoning relief, would he be able to obtain a building permit
That
for
would be
those?
something to talk about with Chris Costa.
Okay.
I guess it depends upon the nature of the work and where it's going to be, but that was something to talk about with the building official.
Okay. Could we, just to be as careful as possible, could we maybe also get a vote for approval of this proposed plan with the, except for the terraced area? So that it's not just a recommendation, because if it's only the recommendation to the board, then I think you might say we have to get a ZBR decision before proceeding with the elements that don't require zoning relief.
But I think you applied for the zoning relief, and that's how it got referred here. It didn't get referred here for.
No,
Because
I don't think they filed yet with zoning. So this was,
you haven't filed for zoning yet?
this was a development plan review.
Okay, so
by-
you don't have, so that's not pending right now?
That's correct.
Okay.
Worst case is, they don't get the mezzanine at zoning, and then you gotta redo it, but you can still do all the other work.
So under those circumstances, the board could vote to approve the development plan, give a development plan review approval.
Minus.
Minus anything that requires approval by the zoning board, which would be the mezzanine.
Yes. That's what I would request.
It's late.
Yeah.
In addition to what we just did,
I think I said it a little confused.
So would it be two, I mean, they just voted to refer it with a positive recommendation, so now do they vote again to approve the plan minus?
Yeah.
All right.
So
Because
you want,
technically, because you were voting to refer it with a positive recommendation, I assumed it had actually been filed with
Not yet,
zoning. So,
not
yeah,
yet.
so it would probably even be more appropriate to give.
It is.
so you want us to make a motion to approve the development plan review minus what the zoning board approves?
Yes.
Isn't that what we do all the time?
Not no, because if it's referred to, if the zoning's gonna review or grant zoning relief, because if they'd already filed, my advice would be you can't do it, because when they file for zoning relief, the zoning board is the final authority on development plan review as well. So you're just advisory when a zoning application has been filed.
Yeah.
You are the authority when a zoning application has not been filed. So the fact that they haven't filed one yet allows you
I
to
see,
do what they're
okay.
asking you to do.
Okay, I think I got it. So may I have a motion to approve the development plan review except for what the zoning board
yeah, what he said.
approves?
And subject to all the same waivers and conditions.
Yeah.
May I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the development plan review except for what the zoning board approves, with all the conditions and waivers, et cetera. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? That motion is also approved. Thank you.
I don't know.
I still think it's real.
I still think it's kind of.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is
Yes.
item
Yeah.
4D. Town council requests that the planning board research adopting an ordinance requiring esplanade-style sidewalks. Consider recommending ordinance language to the town council. Has anything progressed on this?
Yeah, actually, Ron and I met to review it, and the one last item is I need to speak with the town administrator when he returns from vacation, because the idea here is that particularly if there's a reconstruction project of a road, and we're gonna require these esplanade sidewalks, if there's room to do it, somebody has to, in the administration, needs to be the arbiter of whether or not they're required or not.
Yeah.
And I need to speak with the town administrator as
Okay,
to who.
so we should continue this to
I think to the next meeting, we'll
September,
be ready to go.
September
So
8th.
moved.
Do I have a second for continue this to September 8th?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. This item is continued to the September 8th meeting. Next item is item 4E. Discuss a policy for removing items that are repeatedly continued from the planning board agenda. Has anything progressed with this?
Yes. So Ron and I also met to discuss this issue. And I provided you all with a memo with just some draft language. You know, there are really two issues here. We know that sometimes through no fault of the applicant, things get delayed. They may require approval from DEM or CRMC or some other state level approval, and that may take a while. But at the same time, people, other residents or butters who are following these things you get a notice and nothing happens for 6, 7, 8 months. The idea is to not have these things hanging on the agenda, maybe table them to a sort of an inactive part of the agenda, and then when they come back, to provide a new notice to abutters so that they realize that this thing is still out there and they have the opportunity to show up at a public hearing. The other issue are the ones that just hang around and for a long period of time. Now, there are certain situations where that will happen, once again, through no fault of the applicant. Someone gets approval and someone decides to appeal it, and that appeal goes up to the Superior Court, and you could be up at the Superior Court for a year, depending upon the nature of the matter. Or it could come back, and it can go back up multiple times. So the idea is, you know, if there's good cause that the applicant can show for why they haven't been able to proceed through no fault of their own, then it can stay. But at some point, beyond, you know, it really just needs to be withdrawn.
Yes.
And then to start again.
Yes.
Because we don't want things hanging around for years while standards and ordinances and things may change in the interim. And so the idea is to sort of have after 6 months, you're going to get put on the inactive part of the agenda and then renotice. After 12 months, unless you've got a good reason, you're gone, you're off, and you have to reapply.
So if I understand, after it's tabled, after 6 months, the clock keeps running. Is that correct?
Sure.
Yeah, yes.
Sure.
Now,
Okay.
the other thing too, in looking at this and trying, because just as we're just talking, most of these applications, they're on your agenda, they may be simultaneously on the zoning board's agenda as well. For this to work, I think properly, as a practical matter, the zoning board needs to have the same policy. Because otherwise, you know, it's going to be applicable to some projects or portions of projects and not to others. So I think the next step on this, if the board thinks that this is an appropriate and reasonable path to take, is for me then to have a discussion with the building official and the chair of the zoning board to see if because I think they have the same concerns that you do, and they've expressed those same concerns. So I think that they would be on board with having a policy that would be consistent with whatever policy the planning board.
So is this something that you would communicate to them, or are you suggesting a joint meeting, or?
No, I think I would communicate
Okay.
with the building official and with the
Chair of the zoning board?
And then assuming that they're on board with it, then
Then
Ron
we-
and I would just talk about the best place to put this, you know, whether it's, which may be in the form of an ordinance and then also in your regular.
I thought this was just going to be a board policy as opposed to an ordinance.
Well, the idea is to make sure that if we have it, that it's going to cover everything that comes before you.
So you
and
think it should be?
And it has some teeth to it, and it's enforceable, and then we're not.
Okay.
If somebody has their application withdrawn, and it said you're no longer on the agenda, now you have to start all over again, and they decide to make an issue of that or appeal it, I want to make sure that we've got the best enforcement.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
So it conceivably could be a policy, but I think we need to get both planning and zoning on board with a consistent
Peter,
policy.
I was hung up on the, previously on, in a year, you know, I was locked in within a year's period, and we've taken that out. We're basically saying a 6-month cumulative period totaling 6 months, so it could be.
But so 6 months, once again, it can be you're tabled.
Yeah.
Unless they're ready to go, but then a year you're
withdrawn.
That puts the onus on them to be
I like that.
diligent to get their work done in 6 months, but you're right, the zoning board has to be on it as well.
And you always have to have the safety valve if once again, if through no fault of their own, the applicant is not able to proceed.
So if everybody likes that, then I would request that you discuss this with the chair of the zoning board and with the building inspector.
Okay. And I'll report.
Tighten up the language if necessary.
I'll report back at the next meeting.
Very good.
I'll talk to Ron, and then we'll
Thank you,
report back.
Okay, so do we need to continue this, or?
Yeah.
Okay, may I have a vote to continue
So
this
moved.
to the September
Second.
8th meeting?
I mean, it's like
Motion-
KJ's has been dragging through the mud for
Motion is made and seconded to continue this item to the September 8th meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes, and this is continued to September 8th.
Pete, you're on the clock now. You got 6 months to get it done, or we're gonna get you off the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is item 5E, which is to discuss possible communication with the town's Affordable Housing Committee regarding items of mutual interest and possible request of a joint meeting.
absolutely not. Well, I'm going to tell you
All right,
why.
you
I'm going to
recognize
tell you
that.
exactly why. When they put that committee together, there should have been somebody from the planning board, and I would volunteer to go on it, be appointed to it. So they know what the hell is going on with the comp plan and the difficulties we've had each time we do a comp plan and trying to come up with an affordable housing solution. So this idea now we're going to meet jointly with the, you know,
So let me ask a question. When that committee was assembled, was it suggested to them to add a member from the planning board?
I don't believe so.
I don't recall.
no.
Is it possible that we could request that a member of the planning board be appointed to it?
That's simple
You
instead of
can always
tying up.
ask.
Is that something that has to come from the planning board, or?
From the planning board to the
All right,
to the council.
We'll draft a memo to make this request to the committee.
Why don't you vote on
Can't we just make a motion on it? to do
Right.
it?
Yes.
Ron, how many people
May I
are
have
on
such a
that
motion?
committee, do you know?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to request the Affordable Housing Committee of the Town Council to appoint a member of the planning board to its membership.
Absolutely, perfect.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Fine.
Any discussion?
Make
All
it
those in
our
favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
I agree. You're willing to do it, knock yourself out. Because it could be one of you.
Next item on the agenda is the project status report. Does anyone have any questions on the project status report? No? I have a couple of questions on, let's see. Well, under the prioritized ongoing planning board items, I have a question on the application fees. We went through this once before, and it sat idle for more than a year, and I just today asked Ron for the status, and I'll ask him to give the status report.
So we've been able to get the information we need from the Human Resources Department to understand the hourly rates for each of the staff people that are involved with application reviews. That will be one component of calculating the fees. The other component that we do not yet have finalized is working with the finance director on overhead costs. So that's basically all costs associated with being in the building, electricity, heat, all of that. And there's a rate that he applies based on the amount of time that the building is being used. So that's where I am right now. I have a meeting scheduled with the finance director actually tomorrow morning to start talking about that. So I think once I get that information, combine it with the hourly rate information for staff folks, we'll be able to calculate a proposed fee schedule and forward it on to the town council.
That'll be great. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
My other comment is on the prioritized item number 9, mixed-use development ordinance.
8.
If you recall, I'm sorry, 8, thank you. If you recall, when we met jointly with the town council, we requested feedback from them as to why they rejected it. We have not yet received that feedback. I have reached out already to the town council to try to get that feedback, and I have not yet heard back from them, and I will continue to reach out to them to get that feedback so that we can move this along. Any questions on that? Any other comments or questions on the project updates?
Nice job, Ron, thank you. It's helpful. Read it.
Committee reports, airport overlay zoning.
We had a subcommittee meeting back on, was it the 23rd, I believe, Ron, of July?
Yep.
From 2 to 3. I think we're looking at a recommendation that was made in that meeting about adjusting the runway protection zone areas slightly to kind of eliminate some of the residential property abutter concerns. It would just be a slight modification. I think we said we were going to look at that and in our next meeting kind of pick it back up from there.
Right, yeah, we haven't scheduled a new meeting yet. I think it was a thought of floating that idea with the board to see if they were comfortable before the subcommittee proceeded with making that revision to the draft ordinance.
So if I can summarize, the biggest concern when we had our public hearing, and I think was reflected in some of the public sentiment, was the impact to private property owners in this runway protection zone area, which is pretty limited. I don't know, there's maybe, what, a dozen, 14 residential, something. It's not 50, it's not 100 people, property owners. So by just slightly adjusting the lines for the runway protection zone, we take, those people are now out of it. They're still in this airport overlay, but the big impact is shifted. And we believe that RIAC can say yay or nay to that, but in terms of our responsibility, it kind of doesn't absolve us, but we've done our job. And I think that's, I mean, if there's a good way to skin the cat, this is it. Sorry to use that metaphor, but
No.
So what action would we be taking?
and I think the abutters will appreciate it, and I think all the other language that we spent a lot of time drafting, Rita, you put that draft together, we followed some other jurisdiction, I think it's solid. And I don't really want to go back and recreate that
So it's
document of
just
work.
to pass the ordinance
So,
draft?
yeah, I think if the sense of the board is that that's an appropriate accommodation to make in revising the ordinance, that the subcommittee would make those changes Joe just discussed, changing the map, bring it back to the full board, I mean, possibly at the next meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need another subcommittee meeting.
I don't think we do, actually.
Is that the recommendation of the subcommittee?
Yeah, that was our recommendation, is to kind of advise the greater planning board of our efforts, and
Why don't we put that on the agenda for the next meeting?
with what I think is a good recommendation, and I don't want to say problem solved, but I think we've made good headway.
I would add I think we need to have some kind of a public workshop for anybody that's in this particular district to put down the facts and take away the fables. So I think if we're going to do an ordinance, we should do it invite the public. Maybe nobody will come, but our neighbors, because we're partially in there, still have an interest in this thing.
So when it comes to the board, we can recommend a workshop before we
I think
approve
that
it.
would be good, yeah. And I've been forwarding emails.
And I think one more workshop will be really appropriate, and the timing of it will be just spot on.
Yeah, okay.
Mike?
Yeah, so one of the things we also discussed was, with Chris McNally,
Yeah.
when we do have a public hearing, that he summarizes what happened up at the State House as far as the RIAC bill that got passed in this session, and that has an impact on a lot of these people that are also being impacted by our ordinance. So he was supposed to summarize that and say specifically what that covered, and, and then we can show what they do and what we do,
Right.
And basically, we're two separate entities doing two separate things, and,
So maybe when we have the public workshop, Chris can make that presentation.
Absolutely.
Joe, how many of the fix that you're proposing, which I think works, how many of the people affected know about it? Like, were they at the meeting?
Well, nobody knows about it because we just, you know,
Did it in subcommittee?
was kind of like the light went on
Right.
in the subcommittee meeting when I was looking at kind of where this runway protection zone crosshatch line intersects people's backyards. I'm like, you know, we're not talking about moving at a quarter of a mile. I mean, it's minuscule, right? But then all of a sudden now you're not in it anymore.
Right.
So you're technically in a better position
So I was just
as a
curious.
property
Well,
owner.
I agree. I think that all makes sense. I'm just curious if they know about it. I'm sure they'll know about it soon enough.
Oh, yeah, no.
DJ, do you want to?
No, I was just going to say,
Oh,
I was
so we-
agreeing. They don't know about it because it hasn't been discussed
Yeah,
amongst
we're just discussing it now,
So that's
coming
even
out of the subcommittee. So maybe in the next meeting, Rita, between now and then, we can put together a little map to say, here's what
Yeah.
the RPZ looks like, and here's what we propose. We can shade in those property owners that are impacted or affected by that. Say this is our recommendation to kind of help solve the problem. And then, you know, everybody can weigh in and we can proceed from there.
Put it on the next meeting agenda. Thank you. Use table and parking.
Meeting on the 16th.
Meeting
And
on,
we've combined that, Ron, right? So
Yep.
you,
Use
two-
table and parking is combined and
it's two
yeah.
separate items on the agenda, so just next time we want to combine it into one, right?
I don't know how I posted the
I
agenda.
don't mind,
Yeah.
I combine it when I say it.
Yeah.
Use table and parking, one thing.
No, well, we talked
Oh, on
about
this
the
agenda.
reality that the parking can't do the
Yeah,
work
I know,
without-
it's being considered at the same time. I understand.
Right.
You have a meeting scheduled.
16th, yeah.
That's great. Tree Commission.
There are plans for the Tree Commission to do the pathways, hopefully, in the new selection of the park. And thanks to Rita, she may be able to advise us on the grant that was secured. I understand you applied for $100,000, then you received $80,000 from DEM. And I was wondering if you could describe what has happened since then.
Sure, yeah. As BJ described, we applied for a $100,000 grant from DEM to add an additional half-mile loop to the southern portion of the Middletown Valley property. That's the newer acquired area that right now is just fields. We received an $80,000 grant. The town council is going to look at how much money they're going to allocate to as our required match. And I think we're still awaiting some feedback on what that number is going to be and whether it's going to be the full half mile or something scaled down from that. But there is a proposal for new trails.
Yeah, the council's put it out to bid, I think the minimum match was 20,000, so that would be a $100,000 project, or to do the full loop, it would be about 180.
Yeah.
So then they've put both those out to bid to get a sense of what, and then they'll make a decision which plan they go with, but it does look like they're gonna, at a minimum, do a $100,000 project out there to
Great.
extend the trail
Great.
system.
Wonderful.
So.
Yeah, that's great. Good stuff.
Very good, very good. Anything else, BJ?
No, I think
Okay.
that's the main thing.
Yeah. Thank you. Open space and fields.
There's several properties that they're looking at for pickleball courts. I guess for some reason, I don't think the prime spot that they were looking at, which was over at Linden.
Yeah, that
Field.
fell through.
I think so, yeah. But they're looking at others, and
Not going to work? Is that what you said?
so there's other, committee members that are going out to different spots, Albro Woods, Tibbetts Farms, and with their scoring sheets, and they're looking at possibilities for locating them in there. It wasn't that involved.
Pickleball people are fickle.
Give me strength.
That it? Thank you. Conservation Commission?
Our meeting was canceled last night. No update.
No update. Thank you. And last thing is upcoming meetings, and I guess in addition to the three that are there, there's also one for the Use and Parking Subcommittee.
Subcommittee, yep.
Yeah. Anything else that people wish to bring up before the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted, for those who haven't met, I wanted to introduce Mike Monty. He's a associate attorney in our office. He's our newest assistant solicitor. So you'll be seeing more of him. He's
Welcome.
on the Conservation Commission and.
Nice to meet you all.
Welcome.
Welcome,
To the
yes,
point where I
yeah.
can take some nights off.
I hope you're not ready to quit after your first night with us.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get stuck with a
Revolver in your hand.
tough night. Motion to adjourn.
Hang on just a minute.
Okay, go ahead, Art.
I have great hearing, even though I'm an old guy. I couldn't hear shit tonight because of the blowers, and these microphones have got to be tuned up.
My hearing aids were turned all
You
the
know,
way up.
and you guys, I'm not blaming anybody.
Could hardly
This
hear
place has
anybody.
been notorious for trying to communicate, but the blowers, and then it's going up, it's going down. If you're 6'6", you got it here and there, and we're missing something. So I might have missed the whole thing tonight.
It wasn't just me?
No.
We did have
Well,
a meeting though, Art, and you were here.
Couldn't hear.
I will admit that it was difficult to hear the speakers at the rostrum.
There needs to be a way to raise that.
Yeah.
mic up
So
the individual
when it's
call.
set up for the next, probably for the town council, I don't know, somebody has to look at it.
Yeah.
It's cold. I mean, I was cold.
Now may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Thank you, staff. Great job.
Thank you, Ron and Rita. Microphones.
Anyway, I